Imagine this. You're stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic, peering past the windshields of hundreds of cars ahead, each one crawling forward at a snail's pace. But then, with the push of a button, your car's wings unfold. In less than 3 minutes, you leave the gridlock behind, rising smoothly into the sky towards your destination. Suddenly, that endless commute collapses to a fraction of the time. Sounds like science fiction? Well, it might soon be reality, if the AirCar and its rivals succeed. But here's the big question. Will flying cars finally deliver the urban mobility revolution we've been promised for a century, or just unleash a whole new set of problems nobody is ready for? Let's take a closer look at how we got here, the technology behind this bold vision, and the colossal challenges that could make or break the flying car dream. For over 100 years, the flying car has been an irresistible symbol of the future. From the Jetsons' futuristic airways to countless sci-fi movies, we've been primed to believe that one day humanity will conquer both land and sky in a single machine. But in the real world, the journey has been anything but smooth. Early attempts at building a flying car date back to the 1920s and 30s. Concepts like the autoplane and the Convair car promised to merge the convenience of the automobile with the freedom of the airplane. Yet these visions ran aground on technical limitations, nightmarish regulatory headaches, and one simple fact: making a vehicle that excels both on the road and in the sky is extraordinarily difficult. Then came decades of false starts and broken promises. The flying car shifted from a nearly achievable goal to an almost mythical one, a joke for cynics and a punchline in cartoons. But lately, something has changed. Advances in lightweight materials, breakthroughs in battery and propulsion technology, and a renewed sense of urgency around urban congestion have reignited the field. Enter Klein Vision's AirCar, a real-world prototype that has already clocked hundreds of flights, earned a certificate of airworthiness, and inspired headlines worldwide. It's not a rendered fantasy or a billionaire's vanity project. The AirCar is a street-legal car that transforms into an EASA-certified aircraft, in a process that takes just about 2 minutes. Its unique tail and wings fold out or retract depending on your mode. Under the hood, there's a 1.6-liter BMW engine, capable of powering the car to highway speeds on the ground or propelling it to 250 kilometers per hour in the air. The AirCar's record speaks for itself. Over 500 takeoffs and landings completed, a range of up to 1,000 kilometers, about 620 miles, and the ability to leap between cities in a single bound. It's not just a demo unit either. Klein Vision aims to launch the AirCar 2, its production-ready model, within the next 2 years, potentially for $800,000 to $1 million per vehicle. To many, it's the closest we've ever come to putting a flying car on the streets, and in the skies, of real cities. The AirCar fulfills a lifelong dream to bring the freedom of flight into the hands of everyday people, said Stephen Klein, the visionary behind the project, after receiving an elite international award. For Klein and his team, this moment represents the culmination of decades of work, countless technical setbacks, and a relentless drive. But it isn't just the Slovakian innovator who's eyeing the skies. Around the world, major manufacturers, startups, and governments are racing to carve out a piece of the airborne mobility future. The global flying car market is projected to reach $4.18 billion by 2035, with some Wall Street analysts eyeing a potential trillion-dollar industry as eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff and landing, aircraft and flying cars become a mainstream reality. This isn't just speculation. China, in particular, is moving fast, with significant investments and even the purchase of manufacturing licenses from companies like Klein Vision. Hebei Jiangxin, for example, is building new airports and flight schools tailor-made for flying car operations. They're betting big that Chinese cities, already packed with millions of commuters, might leapfrog traditional infrastructure and go straight to the skies. Still, not everyone is convinced the vision is within reach, or even desirable. Aviation regulators, urban planners, environmental advocates, and even historians urge us to pay close attention to the lessons of the past and the daunting obstacles that remain. The practicalities start with certification. While fixed-wing aircraft and even eVTOLs have established pathways for regulatory approval, a hybrid roadable aircraft like the AirCar lives in a gray zone. It must be safe as a car and as a plane, which means passing both automotive and aviation standards. The AirCar currently fits into existing airport infrastructure, but what about the dense urban cores where most people live, and where the real need for flying mobility exists? The Federal Aviation Administration in the U.S., for example, is scrambling to develop standards for eVTOL certification, but admits that vehicles that cross over between road and air, like the AirCar, pose a new frontier. In their words, roadable aircraft present unique challenges due to their dual-mode operation and integration with both road and air traffic management systems. This is more than a paperwork problem. Every part of the flying car, its structure, engine, controls, and even its software, must survive the harsh scrutiny of safety regulators. The AirCar boasts a composite structure for lightness and a ballistic parachute system for emergency descents, but can these features scale to mass production and satisfy global authorities? As one European safety regulator warned, ensuring the safety of both drivers and those on the ground is paramount for flying car certification, requiring rigorous testing and adherence to stringent safety standards. That brings us to infrastructure. Unlike a regular aircraft, a flying car needs frequent transitions between road and runway, or even in the future, vertical takeoff and landing from urban rooftops. This means cities will need to build entirely new vertiports, dedicated air corridors, and sophisticated air traffic control systems. Urban planners are wary, noting that integration of flying cars requires careful consideration of airspace management and infrastructure, including the development of vertiports and air corridors to minimize disruption to existing urban environments. Even if the hardware works, who gets to use it? Right now, with an estimated price tag close to $1 million, the AirCar's early adopters will likely be wealthy individuals or corporations. Critics worry this could deepen social divides, turning the skies above our cities into the latest playground for the ultra-rich. As J.P. Morgan analysts point out, the long-term market opportunity for eVTOL aircraft could reach $1 trillion, but this hinges on overcoming regulatory hurdles, technological limitations, and public acceptance. There's also the issue of certification for users. Most people don't have a pilot's license, and even fewer can handle both ground and air rules. Will we see a new class of driver pilots, or will automation step in to bridge the gap? And let's not forget the environment. While the AirCar's current model runs on a BMW petrol engine, critics argue that any surge in flying car numbers could increase both noise and air pollution, especially over dense urban areas. Flying cars raise concerns about noise and air pollution in urban areas, particularly if they rely on fossil fuels or generate significant noise during takeoff and landing, warns one environmental advocate. Unless these vehicles rapidly shift to electric or hybrid power, the green credentials of airborne mobility will remain questionable at best. Safety is another ever-present concern. Crashes on the road are tragic, but a collision in mid-air over a crowded city is a terrifying prospect. Even with ballistic parachutes, the margin for error grows razor-thin when things go wrong at altitude. Regulators and engineers are walking a tightrope between innovation and risk. Yet the pressure to innovate is higher than ever. City populations are exploding and roads are near breaking point. If flying cars could relieve even a fraction of urban congestion or extend emergency services to hard-to-reach areas, the payoff could be enormous. Some industry futurists imagine a world where air taxis zip between downtown skyscrapers, cargo drones race above highways, and medical flights land directly at disaster sites. The infrastructure, safety, and public trust required for this vision, however, are immense, and only just beginning to be addressed. It's no surprise, then, that the movement is fragmenting. Some experts believe widespread urban transformation is possible. Picture vertiports dotting city blocks and rivers of aerial traffic overhead. Others think the likely early use cases are air taxis between airports, specialized services like medical evacuations, or connecting remote communities. The historian of technology notes, past flying car ventures faced technical limitations and regulatory hurdles, suggesting that the current wave of innovation must address these challenges to achieve widespread adoption. Meanwhile, China's plan to leapfrog the West by buying up technology and securing local licenses raises new questions. Will the global flying car industry become a new front in the tech race between East and West? And how will differing regulatory attitudes shape who leads in this futuristic sector? At the heart of all this is the consumer. Will you, in your lifetime, trade your morning traffic jam for a quick hop through the clouds? Or will flying cars remain a high-tech fantasy, tantalizingly close yet always just out of reach? So, as AirCar prepares for its commercial debut, and as cities and companies scramble to prepare for or resist this airborne future, one question hangs in the balance. Are we on the verge of a transportation revolution or at the edge of a new kind of chaos? What would it actually take for technology, regulation, city planning, and society to make flying cars a safe, practical, and scalable part of everyday life? And what happens if we underestimate the risks? So, given these immense challenges, regulatory, safety, infrastructure, environmental, and social, does the vision of flying cars like the AirCar have a real future, or are we merely chasing another decades-old fantasy? Let's take a deep dive into what might await us if these airborne vehicles do make their way onto our streets and into our skies. Imagine a world just 10 years from now where it's not just traffic lights we look up at, but actual traffic in the air. If aircars and their competitors succeed, we could see entire cities transformed. Urban planners might be racing to build vertiports, specialized hubs where flying cars land, refuel, and take off again. Rooftops that once stood empty could become mini airports. Commuters in a hurry could skip gridlocked highways by switching to air mode, flying over the city at 150 miles an hour. But it's not all Jetson-style optimism. With this new dimension of personal mobility come high-stakes risks and profound questions. Who will have access to these new vehicles? Will they be toys for the ultra-wealthy, or can technology and economies of scale eventually make them a viable option for the average person? There's also the matter of airspace. As one urban planner put it, we haven't even mastered drones in city skies yet. Imagine hundreds of flying cars zipping overhead. That's an air traffic control nightmare. Right now, agencies like the FAA are racing to develop new certification standards, not just for eVTOLs, but for vehicles like the AirCar that drive and fly. The challenge is daunting, integrating these hybrid vehicles safely with both existing road traffic and the crowded airways above densely populated cities. Then there's the infrastructure problem. ClineVision's AirCar is designed to operate from existing airports, but if flying cars become common, will cities build smaller, decentralized launch points or vertiports closer to neighborhoods and business districts? That could mean enormous investment. And what about security concerns, like regulating when and where these vehicles can fly, or even preventing misuse? Noise and environmental impact loom large as well. Remember, the AirCar runs on a 1.6-liter BMW petrol engine, making it more like a sports car with wings than a silent green eVTOL. Multiply hundreds or thousands of such vehicles taking off, and a quiet suburb could sound like the starting line at Le Mans every morning. As environmental advocates warn, if we don't address noise and emissions now, flying cars could make cities less livable rather than more. But it's not all bad news. The flip side is that, just as with the airplane, initial luxury and exclusivity can eventually give way to everyday utility. Consider how air travel evolved. Once reserved for the rich, now accessible to millions worldwide. If the flying car market grows as projected, reaching $4.18 billion by 2035 with a stunning compound annual growth rate, economies of scale might help bring costs down, and technological improvements could give us cleaner, quieter, more efficient vehicles. Let's consider a few possible scenarios, both exhilarating and cautionary. First, the urban transformation scenario. In this future, flying cars aren't just novelties for tech millionaires. Widespread adoption changes cities as dramatically as the elevator once did for skyscrapers. Rooftops become landing zones, highways are less packed, and the daily commute could take minutes, not hours. Companies that design, operate, or service flying cars boom. Yet, if city governments don't address the noise, safety, and social equity issues, we might simply move congestion from the street to the sky, with new headaches for everyone below. Alternatively, flying cars might remain a niche luxury, joined by specialized services. Air taxis, run by companies like Joby Aviation or modeled after Uber Elevate, could whisk clients from airport to city center, or even provide emergency medical transport. This kind of integration demands not just new vehicles, but AI-driven air traffic control, robust regulations, and reimagined insurance policies. And then there are the specialized applications, rescue missions, speedy package delivery, disaster response, where flying cars could prove life-saving. Imagine an AirCar zipping across a flooded region to deliver vital medicine, or carrying first responders over collapsed infrastructure. These roles could help normalize the technology, soften public skepticism, and even pave the way for broader adoption. Yet ethical and social questions persist. Will thousands of professional drivers and pilots find themselves replaced by autonomous flying vehicles? What happens when the first major accident occurs, or when criminals exploit air mobility for new types of crime? Will insurance premiums skyrocket, or will stricter licensing laws prevent widespread mishaps? Addressing these dilemmas will require society-wide debate, not just innovation. As one safety regulator stressed, we need to make sure flying cars are as safe for those on the ground as they are for those inside. That's a much higher bar than for traditional cars or planes. So what's the take-home lesson for all of us watching this revolution from the ground? First, be skeptical, but also open-minded. Every new technology starts somewhere, facing resistance and skepticism. In the late 19th century, people laughed at the prospect of automobile traffic. Today, imagining skyways filled with aircars may seem equally outlandish, but it could become normal sooner than we think. If you're intrigued by this developing field, there are concrete ways you can engage right now. Start by following regulatory developments from agencies like the FAA and EASA. Watch for announcements from companies like Klein Vision and Joby Aviation. If you're a student, consider fields like aeronautical engineering, AI, or urban planning, skills that will be in high demand when this next mobility revolution truly takes off. And for investors or business leaders, this space is brimming with both promise and peril. The global market projections are huge, but remember, the path to mass adoption is littered with failed prototypes and regulatory red tape. Look for companies that prioritize safety, realistic infrastructure integration, and partnerships with public agencies. If you're considering investing, remember that the winners in this race will likely be those who master not just technology, but also the complex logistics of operating between road and sky. On a more personal level, think critically about how technology shapes your life. The dream of flying cars is both exciting and fraught, another chance for society to negotiate the balance between freedom, safety, and sustainability. Would you trust a flying car to deliver a loved one to the hospital? Would you want them flying above your house? And here's a secret most people miss. China's entry into the market is likely to be a game changer. Klein Vision has quietly sold a geographically limited license to Hebei Jiangxin, which aims to manufacture aircars in China and build supporting infrastructure, airports and flight schools. With China's government investing heavily in new mobility technologies and urban infrastructure, we could see the world's first city-scale flying car pilot programs not in Silicon Valley or Europe, but in a newly built Chinese urban hub. In conclusion, are flying cars a solution, or simply a new layer of complexity? The answer isn't as simple as we'd like. If the technology succeeds, and it's still a big if, it could unlock freedom and flexibility, unlike anything we've seen in transportation since the dawn of the automobile or commercial flight. But if we rush in unprepared, we risk creating more problems than solutions: noise, pollution, sky congestion, and a dangerous new class of traffic accidents. The fate of flying cars will ultimately be decided by smart regulation, inclusive access, relentless safety engineering, and, perhaps most importantly, by public trust. The AirCar's journey from fantasy to reality is a microcosm of humanity's restless quest for innovation, bold, risky, and never quite finished. Now I want to hear from you. Would you take a ride in a flying car tomorrow if given the chance? Do you think cities are ready for this leap, or are we racing ahead of ourselves? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the future of flying cars, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to get notified about our next mind-bending technology episode. And if you want to know more about the wildest innovations reshaping our